All right, so we're back. COMP1050 Animation 2D Tools, and this is week 4, part 4. And we're talking about loading and controlling Flash content very briefly. Again, some of this stuff is a little bit out of scope for what we're doing, but I want to mention it to you so that you know where to look. So how do you load and display an external Swift file, right? So it's been created in another file, and you're loading it in, right? Let's take a look at how we do that. So what we want to do, and this is kind of cool, is you have, let's take a look at lesson, or sorry, 09 FLA.h, 09n.fla. So I want to look at to see what the end effect is. Let's switch back to Flash. Here we go. I'll just kill this zoo director here, and I'm going to open up .09 end FLA. Here we go, and I'm going to run it. So there's a couple of neat stuff, right? There's a bunch of little movie clips or Swift files, and they're all kind of embedded in here, right? So I can look at different parts of almost like different web pages, if you will, and all they are is something we've been talking about actually from last week. Right? We have 1, 2, 3, 4 different pages, and this would be kind of a landing page for the website, 100% built with Flash, with 4 different Swift files loaded in here. Right? So we have one here, right, with this cool guy that's doing that movie we talked about before. Got a good actor. And this one here, it's almost like this infographic. And by the way, one thing you may be asked to do when you go into the workforce to do co-op, if you're going to do Flash, is which is becoming more and more popular these days, is an interactive infographic, where you hover over the infographic, just like we see infographics today, and there's a bit of animation, right? All within Flash. And the car. So car, there's different things, and this is all part of the movie. So basically there's a bunch of embedded Swift files in here. So how do we do it? It's kind of a cool idea, right? So we're going to kind of pull up the beginning. Here it is. And if I run it now, right, here you see everything there, but there is no interaction here. So all you see is this, there's some stuff that's already built in terms of motion and so on. Let's take a look. I'm just going to expand it so we can see everything. Here we go. And if it's funny, when I click on parts of the stage, so let me just click on and make things, the stage itself is black, right? And depending on where I click, if you notice, there are different areas on the stage, right? Almost like areas that you can click to produce an effect. So here are the pages, and if I look at my library, I have different symbols, right, that I've kind of included here, and bitmaps. Got different bitmaps. Here they are. I also have some built-in action script, and all it is basically stopping when I load up certain things to play. So for example, the home button 4 and the home button 3 and the home button 2 and the home button 1, all those things just stop the action. That's what they do. And this is what the home button looks like. Home button 2, home button 3. And if you notice, what do you notice about it? If I double click home button 1, right? Or double click home button 2, or home button 3, right? It's a black stage and there's nothing there, right? Like here it is. There's really nothing. It's an invisible button is more or less what it is, right? It's almost like an area that you can click. And if I actually go through here, if you notice, right, there'll be a little bit of embedded animation about this bitmap that rolls through. So this is kind of all built in for you, right? but it doesn't load anything. This is just the button itself. So this is home button 3. Here's home button 4, right? So this comes this way. And here's home button 1, right? He kind of slides in. Here's home button 2, right? And we don't see a darn thing because it's probably way down here or way up there. There it is. Okay, so there's different home buttons that they've kind of put in, and from there they're going to load in their Swift files. So let's take a look how they've done that. So what we want to do is we can run each of these Swift files independently, but what we want to start doing is we're going to load this external content. So we're going to create a new layer on the very top, and we're going to call it action scripts. This is the only one that I'm going to ask you to kind of follow along with because it's kind of neat. Try it whatever you can. So here we go, right at the top. I'm going to go back out to scene. On the very top layer, I'm going to insert another layer called action script. There we go. And from here, we're going to actually go to the Actions panel and type in a couple of things. We're going to type in this thing called ProLoader, which is almost like a way of us, the ability for us to load in different Swift files, right, as we click different areas. So we're going to type these little words here, and I've made it so it's clickable for me. You can type it in if you like. I'm just going to run this, copy, and go to my action script here, and in my action script window, paste. So here I am. So a couple of lines of code, right? And we're going to save it as 09 working copy. .fla. All right. If I run the movie, again, it doesn't really do much right now. Even though that I've loaded in this ProLoader, I really haven't done anything with it. Kind of the first stage. So again, this code, first thing we do, we load in this ProLoader class. Okay. Then what we're going to do is we're going to say we're going to create an event listener, right? We're going to do it. We're going to create an event listener that actually adds in on page1_MC. We're going to add an event listener that on mouse click, right? It's going to use this page1 content to load with a URL request. It's going to load in this page1.swift file. So we're going to just do this one time. We're not going to do it every single time because we don't really have the time, and it's a little bit out of scope for us to do this today. So here I am. I'm going to kind of do this. Grab this information here. Go back to Flash, and right underneath the ProLoader, I'm going to just copy and paste this stuff here. So here I am. So again, what am I doing? Page1_MC. We're going to add the event listener that allows us, when we click on it, we're going to load up this. We're going to actually trigger this method called page1content, which is actually going to load up with a URL request this page1.swift file. All right. Save that. We'll go back. And if you notice, if I run it now, it keeps on going forever and ever and ever. Well, it'll keep going, right? Because we haven't put the appropriate stops in place. It says layer action script access of undefined property page1_MC because we really haven't defined such a thing, right? And when that happens, you might see this thing happening where we don't have a movie clip like that on the stage yet, page1_MC, right? So in order for us to do that, we kind of have to import it in. So how are we going to do that? So first we've got this. We've added this stuff in here, but we got to go to page1_MC. So now we're going to do this. We're going to go to the top left corner of the stage where the movie star guy is, right? So here it is. And we're going to kind of call this, in the instance, page1 underscore MC. That's the instance that we're going to use for an instance name, right? And now when we run it, it doesn't do that anymore because we have that instance name. And if I click onto him, now he loads up, right? So very, very simple. I mean, it doesn't do anything else. It doesn't allow us to go back. If I click on him again, it doesn't do anything. And we're not going to go through this entire exercise, but basically what it does is, using this simple line of code, it allows us to load up another Swift file when we click something. So again, to me, very useful kind of exercise if you want to load up a screen. Example would be, your Swift file could be your loading screen. You might have a loading screen with some music and so on, and you want to load up this screen, and when you're done and we're ready to play, you click on it and then it loads up your game, right? We're going to talk about game states, and there's different ways of doing this kind of thing. There's easy ways and there's hard ways. But we're going to talk about how to do that. Sometimes Swift file is what we need to do. Sometimes we're just going to have our assets, maybe the size of the screen, some kind of loading screen, which is the side of the screen that we're going to kind of phase into the screen to make it do different things, to make it look like we're starting off our screen. Okay, we're not going to go through this part. We're also going to talk about how to remove content. Like after we've loaded it in, we got to remove it, right? Because if we click on the on this thing again, we want to be able to unload the content and get back to where we were. Right? So interesting ways of loading and opening and going to different parts of the video. And if you follow this little exercise here, it's a very short one. If you do this on your own, you can figure out how to kind of load and control video, different Swift files with one kind of controlling file. The other thing that's really cool is creating masks, right? Masks are really, really cool. And the great thing about masks are that you can kind of hide or show different pieces of video or actually anything else by creating a mask layer, right? So let's try that out. So we're going to open up page 2 FLA. Let's just open that up. So we're going to close this one. Actually, we'll just do it from here. File, open, and we're going to go down to page 2 FLA. Here it is. And I don't have this Garabon Pro system font, but that's okay. It's going to give a kind of a font that I have. So here it is. Right? And all I have right now is kind of content. I want to make a new layer called mask. Right? This is kind of cool to watch as well. Very, very interesting effects. Here's our mask layer. And then what I want to do is I want to, I can double click on the layer itself, or I can right click and go layer properties and change it to a mask type. So I can go properties and I can go with mask. Actually, there's the other one that we really didn't cover a lot is guide. And I think having a guide layer when we do our Flash video is really cool, especially when drawing different objects. And we'll kind of go over that as well. Okay, so there's our mask layer, and it gives us a little different kind of icon for doing for what a mask will look like. Okay. So we also can change our content to being masked, right? There's different ways of doing this. So you can actually drag this thing underneath the other one. Let's just do this here. Properties. Now we're masked. We have masked content. And now you're going to see that the content is dragged underneath the mask layer itself. So kind of cool. So you can fill this mask with any shape. So we're going to take a rectangle tool and we're going to put it inside the gutter. We're going to actually put this thing, we're going to make it a little bit bigger than our picture, and put it at the left side of in the pasteboard. Again, I'm just going to make this screen a little bit smaller so we can see everything. There it is. And I'm going to take a rectangle here, which we're going to make a little bit bigger than our file here. Here's my rectangle. I think they wanted us to have no stroke and any color, they say. Well, you know what? I don't care. I'll leave it at gray because gray is a fine color. All right, and we're going to make this the height slightly larger than the stage, and we're going to right-click the rectangle, and we're going to create a motion tween. Okay, there we go. Here's our motion tween. Right, so the mask, the motion tween, and what we're going to do is we're going to make sure that the frames match the length of the mask. We're going to kind of add in a bunch of frames here on the other layer. So we're going to say insert frames. There we are. So now the mask kind of appears, and so does the entire layer. We're going to move the playhead to the last layer and use our free transform tool, right? And we're going to click the rectangle, and after we do that, we're going to take that rectangle and move it so that it covers over our entire screen. Let's try that. So here's a rectangle, click on this thing, and now we're going to go to the last layer, right? And we're going to move it so that it covers. That's not really what I wanted to do. Move the registration point to the left here, sorry. And move it so that it covers the entire screen. There we go. Now we're going to kind of lock both layers. What we're going to do is we're going to add a new layer on top of this one. We're going to call it ActionScript. There it is. And we're going to include a keyframe at the last frame of the ActionScript layer, and we're going to put a stop. So here's the last frame, insert keyframe. And in there, we're going to go into the ActionScripts. In the Actions panel, we're going to put stop in here. There we go. Now again, we're doing this here in the ActionScript layer. But what we might want to do is, when we're making our games, we would do it in different places in the external ActionScript document. Although sometimes it does solve problems to do it here externally. Okay, now we're going to try it out. So let's see how this movie looks. So boom, and then it fades in. What do you think? Let's try it again. See what it does. So kind of, it's a wipe, right? Bang, wipes in. And we did it with a mask. So what we're seeing is, as the mask wipes in, we see the background of this thing. And you can use masks for this kind of thing as well to create different kinds of effects. You can go from the right, left, top, the bottom. You can do all kinds of lovely stuff. But a worthwhile exercise, for sure. And that's it for masks. Okay, that's kind of an important one. And that, by the way, that was chapter 8 and chapter 9 of the book. Now we're moving to chapter 10, the last chapter.